Welcome students, myself Gazala Chawlekar. Students, today again we will continue the chapter number 6, that is Population Module 2. Students, kindly note that most of the statistical diagrams and graphs are used to save time as data is being recorded down. This graph provides a good and attractive visual impression which is very much important in geography. In this video, we are going to see different graphs which gives us the detailed information of age, gender, etc. So students, our learning objectives for today will be population composition. Now, population statistics is most important data that social scientists and policy experts have to work with. Understanding country situation, and of course actually making predictions about total size of population, and also studying the characteristics such as age, gender distribution. So students, how we can keep the track of all this data which makes it easy to comprehend in future. So, with reference to both the countries, that is Brazil and India, with the help of line graph and population pyramid, we are going to study sex ratio, age and sex pyramid, population growth rate, life expectancy and literacy rate. Now students, let us understand what is population composition. Population composition refers to the structure of the population. Now, what is the structure of the population, students? Here means the makeup of the population. Looking at the population structure of a place shows how the population is divided into males and females of different age groups. The composition is the structure of a population in terms of age, gender, and other properties such as marital status and education. Age and gender are the key indicators of population composition. The data are often compared over time using population pyramid. Now students, let us understand the figure 6.3. The figure 6.3 shows the sex ratio of Brazil and India. Now first of all students, what is sex ratio? Sex ratio basically means the number of females per thousand males in a region. Students, as we can see the picture, we can easily recognize that the graph method which is used here is a line graph. On the y-axis we have sex ratio and on the x-axis we have years. When we observe at Brazil line graph, we can say that the sex ratio of Brazil has been more than 1000 since decades. That is, it is evident from the graph that the number of women in Brazil has been more than men's. Also, we can observe in the Brazil graph that after 2001, the number of women in Brazil went more up. That is, it took a spike in the year 2011. But on the other hand, when we observe the graph of India, it shows that in India, the sex ratio is around 940 in the year 1961. And then in 1971, it went down. So, in India, we see fluctuations in the sex ratio since few decades. In India, men's are more as compared to women's. So, it is evident from the graph that the number of women in Brazil have always been more than men, while in India, they have never been more than men. After studying the graph of sex ratio of Brazil and India, we come to a conclusion that the sex ratio in India has been adverse towards female population. The male always outnumbered female population since the beginning of census. The state and the union territory, that is the Kerala and Pondicherry, records a higher proportion of female than male. A balanced sex ratio is important for the socio-economic status of a country. Empowering the girls with education will lead to a better society. Reasons for low sex ratio in India. Students, our country, India, has been culturally a male dominated society. As large population is dependent on agriculture, male child is considered more as an asset to the farming activity. Due to male dominated, women health care has been ignored for the past decade. As a result, the number of deaths and young women has been higher. Female infanticide is practiced. An illegal sex determination test is still prevalent in large part of India. Thus, the patriarchal system and agricultural society has ignored the status of women population in India. Students, now let us understand the figure 6.4. Complex data more easily interpreted through visualization, and one of the way is that demographers represent the internal distribution of population is population pyramid. Population pyramid is a bar graph which shows the age and sex structure of a population. This information is very much useful to government for policy planning. It is useful because these population structure can predict the changes of a population in the future. Besides, they show the level of development of a population. This graph shows the age and sex of population. It is known as population pyramid. This graph is used to study the age and sex related aspects of a region's population. Male side it's usually in blue and at the left side. Female side it's usually in pink color and on the right hand side. The vertical axis shows the population is divided into 5 years age group. The horizontal axis shows the percentage of males and females in each age group. The horizontal axis also can show in the number of people in each sex and age group. On the x-axis we have percentage of population. On the y-axis we have age group. The shape of the pyramid gradually evolves across the time because of fertility, mortality, internal migration. The shape of a population pyramid, students, tells us the story of people living in that particular country. This helps us to know the proportion of children, youth and old people in a particular country. In this pyramid, we can see that the number of young people is more in both the countries, but the proportion of children is more in India, while proportion of people in the age group of 80 years is more in Brazil. After studying the population pyramid graph, we come to a conclusion that the proportion of youth in India is more. That means India is considered young as a larger proportion of a population is in the youth age group. That means India has a productive population. Considering the age of population, Brazil population is getting slowly older. That is, it is considered as old as a larger proportion of population is in the higher age group. As a result, it has larger proportion of dependent population. Let us understand the figure 6.5. Students, as you can see, this graph shows the growth rate of population of Brazil and India. Now, what is population growth rate, students? It is the rate at which the number of individuals in a population increases in a given time period. That is, it is a percentage of population growth which increases in a given year. The given graph is a line graph. On the x-axis we have the years and on a y-axis we have the growth rate of population in percentage. When we observe the graph of the Brazil, we see that the lines shows a downward trend. It doesn't mean the population is decreasing. but it is actually showing the growth is lesser than the previous decade. This means that the growth is less, and looking at the trend in future, Brazil population may decrease. But but when we observe the graph of India, we can say that the population growth rate is stabilized. So, after observing the graph, we can come to a conclusion that the rate of growth of population has reduced considerably in Brazil. However, from 2001 to 2011, India's population increased by 18.2 crores. India's population growth is now declining, but the population is still growing. It is observed that in Brazil, the rate of growth is declining, and Brazil population may not increase in the next coming decades. India has a larger proportion of younger population, which suggests higher growth rate of population in the near future. India's population growth rate has always shown a higher birth rate, thereby suggesting an increase in population. The growth rate has shown only a marginal decrease in the last 2 decades. Thus, population is prescribed to be a higher, whereas Brazil, the rate of growth is declining, and it is predicted that Brazil population may not increase in the next coming decades. Students, now let us study the figure 6.6. This graph shows the life expectancy of Brazil and India. Now, students, let us understand what is life expectancy. It is a statistical measure of average time that the organism is expected to live based on the year of its birth. In simple terms, life expectancy can be defined as the average period that a person may expect to live. Students, on the x-axis we have years, and on the y-axis we have life expectancy. The given graph is also an line graph. When we observe the Brazil graph, we can say that in 1960, Brazil life expectancy was 54 years, and in 1970 it was 59 years, and it went on increasing. It was 75 in the year 2016. After looking at the graph of India, we will find that life expectancy of India in the year 1960 was 41 years. In 1970, the life expectancy was 48 years, and it went on increasing. And in 2016, the life expectancy of Indians was 68 years. It will continue to increase in future. This shows that the life expectancy of Brazilian is more than Indians. Brazilians live for 75 years and above. Students, life expectancy is an indicator of a development of the society. Life expectancy is an important measure of health. It involves improvement in health facilities, progress in medical field, access to nutritious food, introduction of vaccines, development of drugs, or positive behavior. Changes like reduction in smoking or drinking rates will also reduce the death rates and increase the life expectancy of a people. So, in most of the developing countries, life expectancy is still less. But with socio-economic development, it is increasing. The growth rate of population has been high in India due to lower survival rate and lack of security of healthy life in the early decades of census. This led to the higher birth rate, especially in the farming sector. With the higher expectancy, the fertility rate and the survival rate has been much more favorable. Therefore, large population has accepted small family norms, especially in urban area. The life expectancy of Brazil has been higher than India since 1960. Brazil has maintained higher expectancy and its effects is seen with the sharp decline in the growth rate. It has assured that the Brazilians have a higher survival rate. Students, now let us understand the figure 6.7. Now this graph again shows the literacy rate of India and Brazil. Again here we have a line graph. Now first of all students, what is literacy rate? It is a total number of literate person in a given age group expressed as a percentage of total population in that age group. For example, adult literacy rate means ranging from 50 years and above. Youth literacy rate means 15 to 24 years. Again, on the x-axis we have years and on the y-axis we have literacy rate in percentage. The first graph tells us that in 1981 it was 74.6 literacy rate and it went on increasing. It was 92.6 in the year 2016. This means that the literacy rate of Brazil is increasing and it is high. While when we look on the graph of India, we see that in the year 1981, the literacy rate was 40.8. It went on increased. And in the year 2016, the literacy rate of India was 72.2%. That means in India also the literacy rate is increasing, but compared to Brazil, the literacy rate is low. So students, literacy rate means the percentage of people in a certain sample of population we should have an ability to read and write. So after observing both the graphs, we can conclude that the Brazil is and has always been way ahead of India with regard to literacy rate. Both Brazil and India are progressing. Brazil literacy rate is much higher than that of India. The gap between the literacy rate of both the countries, which was earlier wider, has continuously been narrowing. It has reduced from 33.8% in 1981 to 20.4% in 2016. So, India has definitely been progressing consistently. So, with a larger percentage of illiterate people still in the country, the scope for growth is more. On the other hand, for Brazil, the scope for improvement at this rate was limited comparatively because even in 1981 it was already 74.6%, which is higher than what India has managed to achieve by 2016. Now students, let us have a recap of what we have learned today. We learned that the population of India is growing very fast. Population of India is approximately 121 crores. Brazil growth rate is declining. Population of Brazil is 21 crores approximately in the year 2020. Brazil sex ratio shows number of women are more as compared to men. There is a fluctuation in the sex ratio in India. Number of young age group is more, that is youth proportion is more in India as compared to Brazil. Brazil, the higher proportion is of 85 years and above. The life expectancy of Brazil is more than India, but India's life expectancy is also increasing. Literacy rate of Brazil is high, but there is an increase in literacy rate of India also. India and Brazil both are developing nations. The population of every country helps to the development of the nation. Every country should not have overpopulation or underpopulation, but there should be an optimum population for the development of the country. Today, both the countries, Brazil and India, are affected by coronavirus. Number of people have died due to this virus. Thank you students. I hope that you liked the video. Thank you very much.